Hey everybody, it's Christina. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be doing something I have not done before, which is a turnabout stamp. So this is the first time I've ever used one of these. I have seen videos on how to do it, so I think I know what to do. So we are going to play with this today. I did purchase the turnabout jig that we can use for our MISTI. And then I have the turnabout stamp here. I'm using the Pick Me Up turnabout, which is a fairly newer stamp. So when you get the stamps, you get obviously the stamp. So we have our stamp here, but then it also comes with this guide. The guide has these little cross hairs on here, cross intersections, and we're going to use that for lining up our stamp. So what we're going to do is tear the backing off our stamp set, and then we go ahead and remove our stamp from the acetate sheet. So I'm just going to go ahead and pull that off. I'm going to leave this on the backing so you can see what I'm doing here, and hopefully it'll help me see what I'm doing. So what we're going to do is take this so that we're using the stamp side, the side that you're going to ink up, face down. And I'm going to line this up in the center, starting in the center and then working my way out to the sides. So I'm going to put that into place, and part of my head, if it's in the way, just need to make sure I can see what I'm doing. And then we'll line up that side, and that side fell into place pretty perfectly. So there we go. So we have that all set. Then this is going to go into our MISTI. Now I did go ahead and buy a larger size MISTI because I've only ever had my mini MISTI. I will say I'm a little bit disappointed because my foam is not cut straight, so it doesn't sit in my MISTI if I turn it in certain directions, which is kind of disappointing. But at some point I will go ahead and either cut this down or buy the mouse pad that you can put inside of this. But I'm not going to worry about it right now because I really can't wait to play with the turnabout stamps. So the jig, this is the jig, and the jig also has the same crosshairs in here as well. It's also numbered in the corners, and it has a clear film over the top of it that we could take off. And it's sticky so that we can add our cardstock to it, but I'm not going to take that off just yet. I'm going to set this right inside of my MISTI. I'm just going to go ahead and line it up. Now, one thing I didn't just notice is that there is a thing that says this side up, and it does help with lining up your crosshairs because you want to make sure they're pretty much exact on the jig. So we're going to go like that, and then we're just going to go ahead and pick up that stamp. And then we can take the backing off, which has that alignment on it, and put that to the side. So don't throw that away or lose it because you're going to need that for any other times you plan on using this stamp. I am going to pull the backing or the clear acetate off my jig and then put a piece of cardstock down. There are markings for an A2 size card. So again, we're going to set that there. I'm going to get a piece of cardstock. So I'm going to use a piece of 80-pound cardstock. We're just going to line that up on the markings on our jig. Get that pretty much into place there, and we're just going to put that right back in the corner. So I have the number 1 in the upper right hand corner, and then I picked out a bunch of different colors of my inks. And so I just recently purchased Concord and Ninth's ink. I wanted to definitely go ahead and play with the colors. I picked Aqua Mist, Pink Lemonade, Buttercup, and Pebble. I thought they would be a nice color combo there. So I'm going to start off with Aqua Sky, and we're just going to go ahead and ink this up. Now I just realized I did not prime. This is a brand new stamp, and I did not prime it, and I probably should have, but that is okay. We might just have to stamp this twice, so we're going to make sure everything is lined up. And then I'm going to ink that up one more time. I'm not worried too much that I'm getting it onto the jig because we can clean that off. I'm going to ink this up one more time because like I said, a brand new stamp. I didn't prime it to make sure that it would take my ink nicely. So we're just going to stamp it out twice. Okay, so I just stamped this out, but I did it twice. It still is not covering in certain areas. So I am cleaned it off. I'm just going to rub my finger over it just to kind of help prime it. And one thing I did notice is that there was a little piece of maybe like some extra photopolymer that was just sitting over the top of this one stamped image there. So I was able to get that off. And we're just going to prime it, make sure that it's nice and good, and then we'll go ahead and ink this up one more time. And hopefully we'll get a nice coverage this time. Oh yeah, the ink is definitely sitting on the stamp much better than it did before. Perfect. I'm going to switch out from my Aqua Sky to my Pink Lemonade. And then we're going to take our jig and we're going to turn it so that number 2 is now in the upper right-hand corner. And I am going to take my Pink Lemonade. We're going to ink this up. Yeah, it's definitely very important to prime your stamps when you have a brand new stamp, because you'll see that the ink doesn't always settle nicely because there is just like a coating of whatever on top of the stamp, and it kind of makes the ink bubble up and doesn't really sit nicely. So we just want to make sure we prime. We're going to go ahead and lay this one down, and probably going to need to stamp this one out twice too. I'm kind of liking that Pink Lemonade as I make a mess with my ink pad. These ink pads are really juicy. There we go. We're going to put Pink Lemonade away, and then we're going to switch out to Buttercup. I'm going to get this cleaned off. Okay, I'm just going to let that dry for a second. While that's drying, I'm going to switch my jig so that we have number 3 in the upper right-hand corner. And we're going to make sure this is nice and dry. And then we're going to use Buttercup for our next color. Ooh, that's a nice bright yellow. Now, this is my first time ever using a Turnabout, so this is kind of fun. All right, so we're just going to go ahead and stamp this one out. Ooh, that yellow is so pretty. Yeah, the more I use my stamp, the better it's stamping out with each of the colors. We're going to clean off our yellow, and then we're going to switch out to Pebble, which is our other color that we want to use. I love how this is filling in. It looks so pretty as it's filling in. So we're going to switch to Pebble. And then I am going to, once again, turn my jig one more time so that the number 4 is up in the upper right-hand corner. And we're going to take our ink and ink up our stamp. So you may have to stamp this one out twice. We'll see how this one turns out. I just love how seeing everything fill in as it goes is a lot of fun. So we're just going to do one more layer of Pebble. Get a nice stamping of this one as well. That is so pretty. I don't know if I need to stamp it again. I think that's pretty good. And then I'm going to grab my jig. And with the jig, you want to do, at least this is what I've seen, is that you kind of bend the jig and your cardstock will slowly start to pull up. Because if you do it the other way, your cardstock is going to maybe warp and as you're pulling it off. So you want to kind of curl it, and then it's nice and flat. So that is a great tip. So we're going to go ahead and clean off our jig, just like so. I'm just using my stamp cloth here, and then we can get the cover back on this because we don't want it to have, well, in my house, cat hair all over it. So I'm just gonna let that dry for a second, and then I'll put my cover back on the top of that, and we'll get my stamp put away. I was trying to decide what sentiment to use, and I think that because this background is so busy, it needs like a bigger sentiment. So we could do "The world is a brighter place because of you." I think you are wonderful. I think I'm going to do the world is a brighter place because of you. I just think that's kind of fun. So let's do that for our stamps sentiment. All right, I'm having a hard time deciding how I'm going to do this. So I'm going to do a little stamping of my sentiment in the center because I'm not sure if I'm going to do this in portrait or landscape as far as the card. I do a lot of things in portrait, and I think I might stick with that, but I'm not 100% sure. So I'm going to stamp this out kind of in the middle. I'm just going to put it right in the center, and we're going to figure it out from there. I am going to stamp that out with some black ink. I'm going to use some of my VersaFine ink, which is my favorite black ink because it's so nice and crisp. And I'm kind of doing this backwards than I normally do it, so it's feeling a little awkward. Let's get that turned in the other direction. And we're going to ink this up. Just look at that black ink. I love the VersaFine black ink. It is great. I am going to stamp that out. Ah, yes. I love that VersaFine ink. That is definitely one of my favorite inks. This blended out beautifully. I love it. So I am going to do a little bit of die cutting with this one. I'm going to grab my A2 size cards or dies here and decide how I want to die cut this. No, I still am deciding this one probably the size I want to go with. And I might pull out this one because I think I might die cut some solid cardstock to go in the background. All right, I think I'm going to die cut it just like so. I'm gonna add some of my yellow tape here just to kind of hold it in place while I run it through my die cutting machine. Alrighty, so we have our little background all cut here. I could even save this part for another card if I want to. I recently switched my cardstock storage, so I am testing out something different, and I will let you know after I've used it for a while. But I keep my scrap cardstocks in the back side of my storage pockets. And I am going to take a piece of the Pebble cardstock and cut this down. I am just going to cut this out using my scissors instead of using my paper trimmer. I was originally just going to use my paper trimmer, but we don't need to do that. We can do it this way. So we're going to set this right onto my plate. Again, we're going to run this through my die cutting machine. Again, we have another piece that we can use for a frame if we want, and then we have our piece that we can use as a backer. And then I can use this right as the backer for our stamped image. That is so pretty. I really like that. All right, now I'm going to probably use these same dies to create our sentiment, or to die cut our sentiment. And I really like that one. I think that's what I'm going to do. So we're going to commit, and we're going to take this down and die cut this out as well. So now we have The World is a Brighter Place with You, and I just need to decide which way I want my card to go. And I think I do portraits all the time, so I think I'm going to do this in a landscape. I already had some card bases made, so I'm going to adhere this down right like so. I'm going to take this layer down with some tape runner, and I like to hold my card base in front of me while I am putting my cardstock down. It just helps for me to check to see if I'm straight or if I'm crooked, which I was crooked. And if you don't press too hard, you won't have a problem getting that cardstock off of there. There we go. That looks good. So that's one layer. I am going to do the same thing. I'm just going to do this one down as well. We're going to center that onto this piece. And then I am going to add some foam adhesive to my sentiment. All right, I just added some foam adhesive onto the back of our sentiment. Make sure our card's going in the right direction. Some liquid glue to the back of these so I can slide them around if I need to. All right, that looks pretty straight to me. It's probably not, but to me it looks pretty straight. I just added some of the Gina K clear quartz solid gems to my card. These are probably one of my favorite gems to use, especially if I don't have something in particular in mind that I want to use. So I am going to put a couple of these into place. It is so warm in my craft room right now that even the sequins don't want to stick to my pickup tool. This is my backup pickup tool. It's the only one I can get these things to stick to. I don't know if it's just the wax, it's just too warm on the pickup tool, but we're gonna put one just onto our sentiment area. I had a lot of fun playing with the Turnabout stamps. They make such fun backgrounds. I hope you enjoyed today's video, maybe learned a little something about Turnabout stamps if you've never used them before, and I will see you all in the next video. All of the supplies I used for today's card are down below in the YouTube description. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.